India faces 50% US tariffs that came into effect from yesterday. Exports worth $60 billion to the US get impacted. This even as India and US officials continue talks to resolve the standoff. US economic advisor Kevin Hassett calls the US-India relationship complicated. Says if the Indians don't budge, I don't think President Trump will either. Stocks on Wall Street end the trading session higher. The S&P 500 closes at a record high as investors braced for Nvidia's earnings. However, S&P futures fall as Nvidia declines in extended trading following its results that came post-market hours. Asian Pacific markets trade largely lower as investors keep an eye out on the Bank of Korea's policy decision. Attention will also turn to D Street that opens today after a market holiday as US's additional tariffs come into effect. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a lower start for our own Indian market. Crude oil prices settle higher after data shows a larger than expected drop in US crude inventories. Investors also weigh the impact of US tariffs on India. Meanwhile, gold prices stick lower as the dollar gains. Heavy rains batter J&K, Punjab and Himachal, triggering flash floods in several areas, leave a trail of destruction, prompt officials to evacuate thousands, at least 41 killed in Jammu rains. Well, good morning in the Mumbai News Centre. I am Vamakshi Doria and you're watching Power Breakfast. Well, let's take a look at what the Asian markets are doing, the Korean index, for now is in focus. It is one of the top gainers today. South Korea's central bank kept its policy rate unchanged at 2.5% for the second straight meeting. So this is largely on expected lines, but that is one index that is doing well. The other index that is doing well is the Japanese Nikkei, which is up almost 0.3%. It's largely very small moves as far as Asia is concerned. Take a look at the Taiwanese index as well, down only 0.3%. The Seng, of course, is down almost 1% or so. But, all eyes will be on India. Remember, this is a very important trading session. And that is because the final, the 25%, not the final, but the 25% additional tariffs came into effect yesterday. Apart from that, this is also the last monthly expiry wherein, NSE will have a Thursday expiry. After this, the exchange, the expiry for the exchanges will now get flipped. So it's a very important session. All eyes on India. For now, the GIFT Nifty is indicating a start in the red. But, let's take a look at, that's all the global market action. But how will all of these overnight cues impact our own Indian market? We now have our research team joining in with how the trade setup looks like and the stocks that are likely to be in the news. First up, Hormaz joins in to get us all the market cues we need to watch out for today. Good morning, Hormaz.
Good morning, Vamakshi. And it promises to be an important session, as you highlighted, heading into the monthly expiry today. And that is after giving up all the gains of the August series during Tuesday's trading session. Not just that, we also closed below the 20 DMA on the Nifty. So that is another pain point that the bulls will have to encounter today. And of course, the only sector that has stood the test of these all of these uncertainties has been the FMCG sector, of course, with news flows of its own. But of course, the additional 25% tariffs taking effect, so the total levy now becomes 50. Textile, gems and jewelry among the worst hit sectors. And of course, we saw a lot of comments coming in from White House officials, including Kevin Hassett, who mentioned that if India does not budge from its stance, even the president is not likely to budge from his. And of the key levels to watch, of course, on the upside, the first level becomes the 20 DMA, which was 24,737. Tuesday's low on the downside becomes an important low to defend, which is 24,689. And then, of course, if that does not happen, then the August 13 and 14 lows of 24,596 and 24,535 come into play. So important levels to watch on the Nifty. Also keep an eye out on the Nifty Bank, though, because that closed below 55,000 for the first time after the 22nd of May. The index has already declined over 1,300 points in the last three sessions. Tuesday's low again remains the key because it has not closed below that 54,000 mark since the 9th of May. And why the Nifty Bank should also be watched out for, because of these sectors that are going to be hit because of these tariffs. If there are any relief measures announced considering their exposure to these sectors, some further asset quality concerns may arise, and that could put further pressure on these banking stocks. Of course, the monthly expiry being one of the key triggers today. The IIP data, of course, it is a dated one but still gets reported later this evening. That is another one. The expiry cycle shifts 6 from the month of September. NSE will move to a Tuesday expiry. BSE moves to Thursday. 8 stocks will have their last day in the F&O segment today. They go out, including the likes of Poonawalla Fincorp, CESC and the likes. US will report their Q2 GDP today. India reports its own data tomorrow. So a lot to watch out for in today's session. For now, the GIFT Nifty is indicating a 70-point downtick. So we definitely open below 24,700. It remains to be seen whether there is some support coming in at lower levels.
Absolutely, Hormaz. That is an important level that we'll be watching out for. Now over to Ria, who will list out all the stocks we need to watch out for in today's trading session. Good morning, Ria.
Good morning, ma'am. Actually, let's take a look at the stocks to be in focus today. First up is Indigo. Sources say that Rakesh Gangwal family is likely to sell up to 3.1% stake in the company. The offer size is in excess of rupees 7,000 crores and the floor price is set at rupees 5,808 per share. For Biocon, they've received the tentative approval from the US FDA for its ANDA for sitagliptin tablets, so keep your eye out on that. BSE has received approval for the merger of BSE Investments, BSE Administration and supervision with BSE Technologies. For United Breweries, they are going to expand their capacity at the existing Nizam Brewery in Telangana with an investment of rupees 90 crores. Dr. Reddy's has received an interim stay from the Telangana High Court on income tax reassessment proceedings related to the DRHL merger. For Oil India, they have formed a JV agreement with PPCL to execute city gas distribution in Arunachal Pradesh, and TCS has formed a new AI and service transformation unit, so keep your eye out on that as well. The next one is Texmaco Rail. The company has formed a JV with RVNL for the manufacturing and maintenance of freight and passenger rolling stock. The next one on our radar is GR Infra Projects. They've received an LOI for the establishment of transmission systems for the evacuation of power from renewable energy systems. This is for 2 projects in the state of Madhya Pradesh, and the annual transmission charges for this is about rupees 367 crores. And the last stock is Mahindra Logistics. The CFO of the company, Saurabh Taneja, has resigned with effect from the 19th of September, and the new CEO, Isha Dalal, has been appointed with effect from the 22nd of September of this year.
Well, thank you so much for that, Ria. Lots of stocks to watch out for in today's trading session. Finally, we now have Mangalam joining in with cues from the F&O space. An important trading session lies ahead of us, Mangalam.
An important one indeed, especially given the actions of the last few trading sessions. Once the Nifty started moving higher, thereafter started moving lower, and on Tuesday's trading session, there was a big gash that we saw, 255 points lower, and as a result of which the Nifty turned negative for the series itself. The Nifty Bank was an underperformer, as were the broader markets as well. We did see the volatility index spike too, so the India VIX is now at around 12.19, so that's something we'll have to watch out for. And this decline on Friday, or rather on Tuesday, also meant that the Nifty closed below the 20-day moving average of 24,739. So that will be an important level to watch out for as we move into trade today as well. The Nifty, after Friday's fall, has actually now cut about 56 points in the August series so far, and this is obviously the last Nifty expiry that we see on Thursday. As come September series, the NSE expiry moves to Tuesday. The GIFT Nifty at start indicates a 65-point downtick, so that's something we'll be watching out for. A 1,300 crore sale by the FIIs on Tuesday's trading session. They added 10,941 shorts, and the important part is that they wrote more calls than puts. So on Tuesday, we went into trade with a lot more puts written, and those put writers were caught on the wrong side. The question is, will call writers be caught on the wrong side or not? We'll have to watch out for a couple of triggers. With the GIFT Nifty indicating a 65-point downtick, the put-call ratio is at the lower end of the range. Any commentary on trade resolution is something that will take the market higher. And on the way up, obviously, we have the 50-day moving average, which will be a stiff resistance. We saw writing at 24,750 call, 24,800 call, and 24,850 call. All of them having nearly 2 crore shares in open interest added, and the premium suggests that there could be stiff resistance upwards of 24,850. I'm watching out for 8 stocks in particular: ABFRL, Adani Total, CESC, Granules, IRB Infra, Jindal Stainless, Poonawalla Fincorp, as well as SJVN. All these stocks celebrate their last day in F&O today.
Well, thank you so much for that, Mangalam. But let's slip into a very short break. Up next, we get you all the details on the additional US tariffs that have come into effect in India. Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. On to the top story that we will be tracking today. India faces 50% US tariffs that came into effect from yesterday. Export worth $60 billion to the US get impacted. The Trump administration notified India about additional 25% tariffs earlier this week. In fact, President Trump, while making the announcement earlier in August, had alleged that India was fueling Moscow's war machine by buying Russian oil. My colleague Parikshit joins us now to tell us more. Parikshit?
Well, the White House is increasing the pressure on India and making the messages very clear. In fact, Peter Navarro, the President's senior counselor for trade and manufacturing, has said that India can get rid of the 25% additional tariff if it stops buying Russian oil. So this is a very clear statement demanding India to stop buying Russian crude oil and gas. Kevin Hassett, who's the White House National Economic Council director, he's gone on to say that India and U.S. have a complicated relationship right now. While the U.S. wants to stop the war in Ukraine with India's help, India is also showing intransigence by not opening up its economy, and India has made its red lines very, very clear. And he also says that if India is not going to budge on trade, then President Trump will not either. So strong messages coming in from the U.S. government there. At the moment, government sources here in New Delhi say that talks between India and U.S. continue to resolve the tensions. We're still looking out for a way to put a pause on the additional tariffs. The message also is that we will be able to overcome the tariff hurdles just the way we've been able to overcome the economic setbacks during COVID-19 and also how we overcame sanctions during the nuclear tests as well. So the message is we will emerge stronger, we will be able to absorb the hit, and there will be sector-specific concessions that the government will consider. In fact, daily meetings are taking place at the Ministry of Commerce to understand what the problems are that the exporters are facing. Having said that, the Finance Ministry has warned that while the immediate impact of U.S. tariffs may appear limited, but secondary and tertiary effects will pose challenges in the coming few months. Given the importance of the U.S. market for India's exports, the uncertainty would affect the Indian industry unless it is resolved. So there will be an impact on business confidence, investor sentiment as well.
I think that it is a complicated relationship, that it's integrated some with the problems that we're trying to put extra pressure on Russia so that we could get a peace deal to save millions of lives, and the Indian intransigence about opening their markets to our products. And so I think that when you're looking at trade negotiations, one thing I think we've all learned is that you need to keep your eyes on the horizon and recognize that there are going to be ebbs and flows in things before we reach the final position. And if the Indians don't budge, I don't think President Trump will either.
Well, shifting focus then, government sources have sought to downplay concerns over the impact of fresh US tariffs and indicate that there is no need for panic. My colleague Abhimanyu joins us with what his sources are indicating. Abhimanyu.
Government sources have described the current situation on tariffs as a temporary phase in a long-term relationship. Sources have indicated that there is no reason to panic as communication channels remain open between India and the United States as far as any resolution to the issue of tariffs is concerned. Meanwhile, India is also planning targeted exports to big textile importing nations to undo the impact of tariffs. Now, these areas include the traditional export markets of labor-intensive products like the European Union, the United Kingdom, South Korea, and Japan. Also, India is looking to tap into emerging markets in Latin America, the CIS countries, the ASEAN bloc, and also West Asia. It remains to be seen what kind of strategy is going to be devised by the Commerce Ministry in consultation with other ministries and the industry at large. Consultation is already underway since the past few months and is going to intensify in the next few days. Also, export promotion councils are going to conduct market mapping to identify high demand products, and they are also going to guide exporters to use India's current FTAs, even as the country is already negotiating new FTAs with several trading blocs, several countries to ensure that more and more export avenues come up for India's labor-intensive exporters to undo any impact of the current tariffs.
Well, thanks for that, Abhimanyu. But, the Minister of State for External Affairs called the US tariffs unfair and unjustified, says India's economy is resilient and strong. Let's listen in.
These tariff regime that is we are seeing, the world is seeing, is highly unjustified. Okay. it is, I'd say, highly unfair. The reasons that have been ascribed to our country as an excuse for increasing tariffs, those same reasons are also lie with many other countries who continue to import energy from the markets, from the same markets that we are being blamed for. So it's a totally unjustified and unfair, let's say, imposition of tariffs. But we are confident, our economy is resilient, our economy is strong, and under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, we will definitely insulate our country from any harmful effects of such tariff regimes.
Well, and let's focus in on the US markets then. Wall Street ended higher on Wednesday for the second straight day ahead of Nvidia's earnings, which came post-market hours, which beat street estimates. CNBC's Steve Kovac gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were up across the major indexes in Wednesday's trading as Wall Street waited for Nvidia earnings after the bell. The Dow rising 147 points, the S&P 500, which hit a new high, up 15 points, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq climbing 46 points. The Food and Drug Administration on Wednesday approved the latest round of COVID vaccines in the United States, but ended its broad use authorization. The shots are now only cleared for people with higher risk of severe illness, including those 65 and up, as well as younger adults with at least one underlying condition. The move by Health and Human Services Secretary and vaccine skeptic Robert Kennedy Jr. is a break from policy over the past several years, which recommended the vaccine for all Americans ages 6 months and older. Shares of prominent vaccine makers, Pfizer and Moderna, were up marginally on the news. And a big achievement for toy maker Lego. The Danish company on Wednesday reported record revenue of roughly $5.4 billion in the first half of the year. It was also the best first half of a year for operating profit and net profit. Lego says it was bolstered by demand for its popular flower and succulent sets, as well as Formula One race car models. Up next for Lego, a multi-year partnership with Pokemon due to hit shelves next year. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you in Mumbai.
Well, thank you so much for that. But let's slip into a very short break. Up next, we get you cues from the commodities market, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast. Well, we now have my colleague Manisha Gupta joining in with all the updates from the world of commodities. Good morning, Manisha.
Morning, Mamachi. Thank you for that. Well, I'll start with the crude oil prices, which seem to be holding firm right now because the U.S. inventories have seen a decline of 2.4 million barrels, which is much higher than Street was anticipating. And it's not just about a decline in crude inventories in U.S. It is also gasoline, distillate reserve that also has seen a decline. Markets also are reading out onto the U.S. penalty tariff on India and whether or not that would impact international markets. It also is about Russia and Ukraine, which have stepped up attacks on each other's energy sectors, and that could lead to some supply disruptions, is a premium that the markets are working with right now. But having said that, the OPEC supply is on the higher side. The global inventories are on the stronger side. China's demand not so much, and that in turn is keeping a check on the crude oil prices. What also has done well has been the gold, silver, and metal prices. Gold is trading near 2-week highs, silver at around 1-month highs. The markets are looking at concerns about the U.S. Federal Reserve autonomy. And apart from that, when it comes to gold buying, Vietnam and China seem to be looking at stronger numbers for the month of July and August as well, and that has been supportive. But apart from gold and silver, nickel, copper, iron ore also are trading firm. Even zinc price is trading at around 1-month high. So good going in metal.
Well, thank you so much for that, Manisha. But moving on, thousands have been evacuated from flooded low-lying areas as heavy rains wreak havoc across Jammu and Kashmir. 41 pilgrims were killed and several others injured in a landslide near the Vaishno Devi shrine route, while flash floods washed away houses and a bridge in Kishtwar. Over a dozen paramilitary personnel remain trapped in Kathua. Major rivers including Tavi, Chenab and Jhelum are flowing above the danger levels, causing widespread damage to bridges, homes and infrastructure. Well, and let's again go back to what the Asian markets were doing, and let's recap what's happening there. For now, it's a mixed looking screen. The Hang Seng, of course, is down almost 1%, so it has managed to, decline further. It was down almost 0.9% earlier on. Taiwanese index also reeling under pressure, down almost 0.5%. But the Nikkei, Kospi, all of these indices are trading higher. Let's also take a look at what the GIFT Nifty is indicating. It was a 70-point downtick when we started the trading session. For now, it's a 60-point downtick. So, we'll be watching out for that. All eyes on India today. But with that, that's all we have on this edition of Power Breakfast. Don't go anywhere. Pasar Morning Call comes up next.